such a beautiful thing. You're like, my veins. Ah.
Oh, she's like, oh my god. And I was like, she has one.
She does.
So come on, it's different. No, it's not. A tattoo is a tattoo, my dear.
I'm this close to getting convinced, but we'll see. I'm trying out baby steps.
Everyone, it is so wonderful to see you rolling into this space. My name is Micah. I'm one of the ministers here at Judson. My pronouns are he and they, and I am honored to serve alongside Reverend Dr. Valerie Holly, who's at the end there, Reverend Julie Johnson Staples, JD, who's right next to her, and then look at this cornucopia of community ministers who have joined us for this upcoming season. Welcome, 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 welcome. You are going to hear from each and every one of them during this service, so I'll introduce them and invite them up to this very podium as it becomes their turn. But before we get into this invocation of a season of radical hope, we're going to start this service off with announcements, as we always do. So, if you would like to make an announcement, make a line on either side. Please keep your mask on until you get to that part, until you get up here to this podium, and then you can take your mask off so that we can see your beautiful face, hear your beautiful voice, and know what you are inviting us to or announcing. Steph, join us.
Good morning. How y'all feeling? I'm happy to be here, happy to see all the smiling faces, and be back up in this building. Give a round of applause for yourselves for showing up. So, up here to announce some things. So, first announcement, just because it's relevant content, is that my birthday was Friday, and I'm happy to be back here at Judson to celebrate my birthday. Virgo gang, gang, gang. The other announcement is that wrapped up Freedom Summer. We did Freedom Summer. It's my it's a program that I do through my yes. Give a round of applause for Freedom Summer. So Freedom Summer is an arts and activism summer camp for young kids. It's for young people, ages 11 through 21. This summer we did photography, we did digital media, and we did poetry. And it's like exploring these different mediums of art through the lens of like social justice. And a new component that we added was service work and service learning. So having the kids go out and like stock community fridges. We did green space, learning more about green space and accessibility, and we cleaned up Washington Square Park with the garbage pickers. We also did journaling workshops. So we invited folks from the community to sit with us and process their thoughts and feelings, like a mental health pop-up. And so that was really beautiful. We had an open studio where they shared their art. Some of the work included unpacking the various tropes in media and how that affects the way that we perceive people. And the overall theme was really just us versus them, bridging the great divide. And so through these different art forms, we did that. And through looking at how these tropes in media, they divide us, and we start to perceive people in ways that they're othered, right? We did photojournalism and did these beautiful humans of New York type of portraits and biographies, and got a chance to see the humanity of the people that we pass by every single day. And this work is what I do through my organization, the Power of Love Project, which is fiscally sponsored by Judson Memorial Church. And I want to give a shout out to Lisa Holton, who is on the Friends of Judson on the board. So the Friends of Judson gave my organization a beautiful grant that helped us to make payroll and for me to be able to do this work ethically, hire genius teaching artists and teach genius kids. And I'm really grateful for the support. I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. There's a lot more things that we're planning, and I want to let you know that literally every penny, every dime that you guys give, some of you guys in the congregation right now are like monthly givers. That enables us to do this work because I don't charge these kids to take this program. It's free for them. They're here 5 days, 8 hours a day. It's really intense. We're taking deep dives. We feed them several meals, and it's really powerful work. And everything that you guys give in regards to resources makes it possible. And I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart for helping me to do this work. Give a round of applause for yourself. And the last thing is that to celebrate my birthday, I am releasing a new song. So on Friday, the pre-order link went up for a new song that I'm gonna actually sing today. It's called Get Free, and it's on iTunes right now. So after I perform the song, if it moves you and you feel compelled and connected to the song, go on iTunes, search Steph Reed, and pre-order Get Free. Those are my announcements. Thank you, Micah. Thank you, Judson. God bless.
Wow, that's a hard act to follow.
Good morning, my name is Betty McIntosh, she, her. At yesterday's block party, it was heartwarming to have so many Judson folks all together, reconnecting, playing, eating, and helping. We broke out of our little Zoom boxes, and numerous hygiene kits were put together for our mutual aid effort. Early on in planning for this block party, I realized I could not pull this off alone. So I formed a mini committee composed of Keen Berger, Jane Lucas, Suzanne Dickerson, and Jacqueline Ambrosini. I am grateful for their support, both emotional and practical. I want to give a particular shout out for Keen. If she had not persevered with local officials and the police department, we would not have gotten the permit to close Thompson Street. I also want to, I also want to thank the dozens and dozens of volunteers who carried out tables, chairs to the street, decorated with banners, balloons, signs, and bought delicious food, and then cleaned up and brought everything back inside. Maybe we didn't go skinny dipping, sit around a campfire, or hike around the lake, but I think we created the next best Judson weekend. Thank you to everybody.
I'm Vanna Whiting you. I'm glad you thought I was going in for a hug, but I was like Vanna Whiting you. I was just trying to... Betty McIntosh, everyone. Betty, thank you for all you did, all the wrangling of all of us, and especially the volunteers who you named. Thank you, Keen, for all of your part. Thank you, Judson Board, for your part. And that's a perfect segue into saying that we are, this weekend, launching a season of radical hope. We will get into what that actually means a little bit later in this service, but you heard Betty talk about yesterday's block party, and I want to go even further back in time, a day, and celebrate Jason Sang. So a round of applause for Jason Sang. Thank you, Jason, for both inspiring all of us, but also doing it in two very concrete ways. A huge group of us went out to our front yard, Washington Square Park, on Friday night, and we invited folks to do two things. One of them was to add their dreams and hopes for the migrants who are arriving here on buses in the city, and weave that into a tapestry that is stretching from the fountain on the corner of our building all the way to our front door. It is already beautiful, and we will continue to add to that ribbon tapestry, so thank you, Jason. Also, you'll see behind us, we invited folks to create their own saint candles for the radical saints in their life who have given them the foundation and roots for them to go into the world and do what they need to do. So we also have more saint candles if you would like to add to the roster that is up here. And be sure to come up here and read what your fellow Judsonites have shared, read what dozens of folks from the park shared as well. It was a good time, and I have a feeling we're gonna start doing that more often in our front yard. It just makes sense. We've got a beautiful lawn ornament out there, that monument, and we might as well gather around it. And I see Jason now is gonna hush me up and make an announcement.
Not an announcement. I just wanted to personally thank Steph Reed, because the whole inspiration for the activities that we did on the Friday night was directly inspired by my nephew's experience with Freedom Summer. And going to the open studio and seeing the young people at work, and frankly just being jealous that they got to do what I wanted to do. So I just wanted to show how this is a circular economy of generosity. So just amen to that.
All right, and with that, we're going to move even deeper into this service, so I will invite Reverend Valerie to come up here to read our land acknowledgement, and then we'll go directly into hearing Get Free from our very own Steph Reed. Reverend.
So I'm about to read the land acknowledgement. However, I can't miss an opportunity, since Steph is coming behind me in a minute, and he was ahead of me. I do share a birthday with him. Mine came ahead of him, though. But I just wanted to say that. I won't say how many years ahead of him, but it was on Friday. So I'm reading the land acknowledgement. I've already been introduced, and you can read it with me or follow along. We gather today on physical space that stands on the unceded land of the Menansi Lenape tribe of the Lenni Lenape people. We acknowledge these people of the Stony Country and decry the unjust taking of their Lenape Hoking. We acknowledge the unfulfilled promises of the United States treaties granting land access and the still unresolved traumas of forced migration. We acknowledge and affirm Native values and indigenous cultures while holding space for the myriad authentic and post-colonial Indian expressions of faith in life. To remember well and move beyond ceremony to reciprocity and repair, we prayerfully commit to better understand our place on this land. We extend honor to those people who still live on and steward the land, and we will strive to make meaningful and hope-infueled connections between the original people and their ancestral land in order to counteract all harm to original peoples that perpetuates a narrative of erasure. And now our prelude, Get Free, composed and performed by Steph Reed.
is crashing before my eyes, and trials are stacking. It's do or die. Can't quit, I've come too far to lose. Won't let this break me, I refuse. I just gotta get out of here. I just gotta get out of here. I gotta get free. I gotta get free. Days are passing into the nights, and I am grasping to see the light. Can't quit, I've come too far to lose. Won't let this break me, I refuse. I just gotta get out of here. I just gotta get out of here. Gotta get free. I gotta get free. See, sometimes we must walk alone. Life's beauty lies in the unknown. Oh, the silence screams and drowns my cries. But within darkness there's a light. I just gotta get out of here. Hey, yeah. I just gotta get out of here. I gotta get free. Yeah. I gotta get free. Yeah. I gotta get free. I gotta get free. Sing that. Free. gotta get free. I gotta get free. I gotta get free. I gotta get free. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Steph. Thank you for all you do for the young folks, and thank you for waking us up this morning and bringing us into this season of Radical Hope. And now it is my honor to welcome our first of 5 community ministers to this podium. Brooks Rumor Snedeker Applegate, come and call us to worship.
No pressure following that, so it's all good. Will you please rise in body or spirit, both here and online, as we sing, or as we, this is sort of a song, this prayer of qualified hope. Grief grinds, grooves deep and debilitating, and my thoughts and prayers fall in. Hope might be the thing with feathers, but it is keratin drenched with tears, dripping with oil. Drowned by my refusal to carry the weight and climb, I feel you across the chasm. Stretching between us is a choice. While the powerful wield the weapons of purposeless poetry, may we be at work, welding our wounds into a web, remolding our rage into a refuge, holding and healing the holes in our holiness. And until our voices and vows out-harmonize the harms, may our thoughts not be avoidance, but space. May our prayers not be ignorance, but wind, and may our hope not be naivete, but the nest that nurtures future flights, even and especially when it feels emptiest. Amen.
Please remain up in body and or spirit, and we've got our first chance to sing again together, Hymn of Promise, an old classic. Thank you.
Amen.
my honor to invite up our next community minister, Elliot Weidenar.
Good morning. Our first ancient testimony for today comes from Hebrews 11:1. Now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not yet seen. And our first modern testimony is a poem that I wrote. It's called Exodus. I am in love with the Holy Mother Church. Yet she will never love me as I love her. She's unwieldy and imperfect. She's been a hateful, absent, and neglectful mother. Lost inside her bottle, the one labeled evangelical. So I went into the desert to find my father, the one my mother never fucking shuts up about. I walked for 40 days and 40 nights, following a star, and I found him in a burning bush at the foot of a mountain.
Thank you so much, Elliot. And now, from New York Theological Seminary, it is my honor to invite up Vashti Valerius.
Good morning, everyone. It's an honor to be here and serve with you on this morning. So I'm going to read Ancient Testimony number 2 from Genesis 21:8 through 19. So Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water and gave it to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder along with the child, and sent her away. And she departed and wandered about in the wilderness of Beersheba. When the water in the skin was gone, she cast the child under one of the bushes. Then she went and sat down opposite him, a good way off, about the distance of a bow shot, for she said, "Do not let me look on the death of the child." And as she sat opposite him, she lifted up her voice and wept. And God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven and said to her, "What troubles you, Hagar? Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he is. Come, lift up the boy and hold him fast with your hand, for I will make a great nation of him." Then God opened her eyes, and she saw a well of water. She went and filled the skin with water and gave the boy to drink. Amen.
Thank you so much, Vashti. And now to continue in a few new perspectives on this story that Vashti just read, welcome up Emily Farthing.
Good morning. So the story of Hagar, the part that Vashti just read in Genesis, is part of Abraham's story. And it's written in the style of a chiasm where the beginning mirrors the end. And at the pinnacle of Abraham's story is Hagar. Now, Hagar is in the Hebrew Bible, Hagar is in Galatians, the New Testament, and Hagar is in the Hadith and is Hajar in Islam. And what I'm going to show you today is a project I did for my Hebrew Bible class last year, in which I offered any Union student to read her story in the Hebrew Bible, New Testament, and in Hadith, and reflect on where they saw themselves in that story. Who were they? What did it make them feel? What memories did it bring up? And from those conversations, which blew all of my expectations, assumptions, prejudices that I thought people would answer a certain way based on their gender, race, class, where they stood at Union, I learned that we have to read these texts with people and learn from them and create art. So here's a reflection of those stories through the lens of 11 different students from Union Theological Seminary. First, we have Caleb. Now, Caleb's mother's last words were, "I am Hagar," before she passed of cancer. For Caleb, he thought that up from the ashes, hope arises, and that life still exists from the water that was passed down from Hagar to Ishmael and from his mother to him. Up from the ashes, hope arises. Next up, we have Marissa. Marissa, growing up in a patriarchal community that did not allow her to study religion or take any leadership roles based on the fact she was a woman, she questioned her faith and she questioned God. Now, next we have Mimi. And for Mimi, this story was too dark to relate to any person in the story. And so she related to the part in the Hadith in which stones from Hagar are used to build a new generation. Mimi related to the stones. From her, they laid a new foundation, a new future of which birthed from the extreme suffering of Hagar. Now, the next is Anna, who identified with the water in the Hadith, the water as the builder of community and the sustainer of life and the gatherer, and as Micah reminded me yesterday, the water at Judson as a cornerstone of this church, giving life and community. Next we have Jonathan, rage. Rage that comes when you try to process the orders of a God to return to a situation that is oppressive, the tension. And then we have Bethany, and the power that comes from naming God. Hagar named God, taking a leap of faith from a life tethered to a faith that was judgmental to owning a life of faith that was her own and that is liberating. She took the leap and she is free. And Josh, who identified with the angel in the story that told Hagar to go back. And Josh identified with being that voice that used to exist as a mouthpiece for his evangelical path, echoing narratives that were given to him to give to others. And then myself, sex object. I heard the voice of God in a vodka bottle that told me to return, to go back to the places where I am just a body and I am just to be consumed. And next we have Melissa. And there were so many questions of faith that came up in our conversation. That was our conversation, questioning faith. Was God's promise of a new nation dependent on Hagar's submissiveness? Melissa said no to the voice of God, and she said yes to her and her decision to go to Union to get an MA. And then we have Shanaz. Shanaz is a Muslim student at Union in Union's Muslim program, and she feels that she is propaganda. I'm a Muslim student in a Christian seminary that likes to say it has a Muslim program but feels unheard. And finally, Gayla and motherhood and the unimaginable pain, abuse, loss, and survival of Hagar and the hope that she gives us.
I just came from court and I didn't have time to change, so. under pressure that burns a building down, splits a family in two, puts people on streets. Da 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 day, da 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 day. It's a terror of knowing what this world is about. Watching some good friends scream, let me out. Pray tomorrow takes me higher. Chipping around, kick my brains on the floor. These are the days it never rains but it pours. Oh, it's the terror of knowing what this world is about. Watching some good friends scream, let me out. Pray tomorrow take me higher. Turned away from it all like a blind man. Sat on a fence, but it don't work. Keep coming up with love, but it's so slashed and torn. Why? Oh, love, 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 love. Insanity laughs under pressure. We're cracking. Can we give ourselves one more chance? Why can't we give love one more chance? Why can't we give love, give love, give love, give love, give love, give love? 'Cause love's such an old-fashioned word, and love dares you to care for the people on the edge of the night, and love dares you to change our way of caring about ourselves. This is our last dance. This is ourselves under pressure. Under pressure.
Thank you. Please be seated. I always give the note to self, don't preach after Matt sings, but what are you gonna do? I never take my own advice, and Steph already blew the roof off the place, so we might as well just go on from here. I want to thank all of the community ministers who have gone thus far. Thank you so much for the incredible spirit that you're already bringing to this place. And Jillian, we're going to get to you in just a moment. Would you all pray with me? That's a prayer in and of itself. Thank God for GPS. May I say what I need to say? May you hear what you need to hear. And may we be one another's GPS, pointing ourselves in new directions. Amen. This is ourselves under pressure. Thank you, David Bowie, and thank you, Freddie Mercury, for those prophetic words. And is that not the most prophetic bass line in all of the history of music? I mean, when you hear those two notes kick in, that ding, 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 yidda-ding, ding, 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 yidda-ding, ding, 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 yidda-ding, ding, even if you can't immediately place the song, you know what's coming. You know that it is about to explode into pressure, pushing down on me, pressing down on you, no metaphor, right? You know it's coming. Apologies, Matt. That bass line is like the entire book of Jeremiah encapsulated into two notes. And don't even tell me that it makes you think of Ice Ice Baby, because then I'm gonna have to switch and do my sermon on appropriation in mass culture, and none of us have time for that today. Whether you have come to this space today, weighed down by personal anxieties and disappointments and grief, or whether you are more focused on the weight of our ongoing collective anxieties and disappointments and grief, or if you're somewhere messily in between, I imagine that today you have entered this space feeling some kind of pressure pushing down on you. And if this were a different kind of church, that pressure that you're feeling pushing down on you might be met with a perfectly packaged brand of saccharine, rose-tinted hope that might keep you afloat for a little while, but would quickly deflate after you left this room. Because we are not that kind of church. Here we don't deny the pressure, and we don't force the hope. So what do we do? This morning, to cap off a Bafo Sacco Judson weekend, we are using this service to launch a season of radical hope. Here at Judson, there are going to be 10 weeks of sermons and services that will interrogate the ingredients that make up the radical hope of this place where the very real pressure of everyday life and the very real pressure of potent possibility collide and become something holy and wholly new. Now, I know that in this world and in this country and in this city where the news cycle constantly invites us to spiral deeper and deeper into cynicism, bringing up a term like radical hope might feel like an act of optimistic aggression. But I want to assure you that I am not simply in Pollyanna pilot mode. And to prove it, I want to invite you right now for just a few minutes to focus less on the word hope and more on the word radical. The word radical can mean several things, and the three most operative definitions for us here today are radical, very different from the usual or traditional; radical, of or relating to the origin; and radical, of, relating, or proceeding from a root. Radical, of, relating to, or proceeding from a root. How often do you take the time to realize how much of what you do, so many of the actions and the choices that push you beyond the limits that you thought you actually had, into deep, deep new places, are actually coming from deep, deep roots? How often do you take the time to realize how much of what we do here at Judson that pushes us beyond the limits of what a church is supposed to be has deep, deep roots. How often do you take the time to remember that hope is a radical act, meaning that here at Judson and in our own seeking hearts, hope is an active verb that has deep, deep roots. And if we want to frame it using smart philosophical words, we can look to deep, deep thinker Ernst Bloch, who in the 1950s offered a big book called The Principle of Hope. So we're going to get real philosophical here for a sec. Ernst Bloch asked, who are we? Where do we come from? Where are we going? What are we waiting for? And what awaits us? And then Herr Bloch ventured a guess for how to actually answer these questions. And he said, many only feel confused. The ground shakes, they do not know why and with what. Theirs is a state of anxiety. If it becomes more definite, then that anxiety becomes fear. It is a question of learning love and learning hope. Its work does not renounce. Hope is in love with success rather than failure. Hope, superior to fear, is neither passive like fear, nor locked into nothingness. The emotion of hope goes out of itself, makes people broad instead of confining them. The work of hope requires people who throw themselves actively into what is becoming, a thing to which they themselves belong. So to put Herr Bloch's words in slightly more provocative terms, here are some questions for you. Do you know that you belong to hope? Do you know that you and hope have deep, deep roots? To begin to help us answer those questions right now, we are going to go back to some roots right now. We're going to get radically radical right now. Are you ready? Okay. To illustrate, I want you to time travel with me back to the stories of three very different people. Okay, first, we're going to travel back to the early 2000s and talk about an awkward Midwestern queer kid named Micah. You don't know him. Then we will go a little ways further back in time and talk about a 19th century New York City pastor named Edward Judson. Then we'll go a whole lot further back in time and talk about an ancient enslaved woman named Hagar. And I am hopeful that by the time we get to the end of these three little tales, you will feel refreshed and renewed and ready to reclaim your radical roots. So, first, travel with me back to New York City in 2000. A young teenager named Micah who has spent his entire life sure that he is going to come to New York City and study theater and theology and then go directly into seminary and then immediately become a pastor, just like his dad, is halfway through his undergraduate studies when he suddenly realizes he's gay. Right. It's been coming on for years, but it hits him like a ton of glitter bricks on one Saturday night, and shaken with fear, this budding little queerdo sits up all night talking with a very loving friend who patiently accompanies him through the wilderness of panic. And Micah doesn't sleep at all that Saturday night. He hasn't been to church in months. But after staying up all night and talking through his fears with his friend, he decides to travel downtown to a little church that he's heard about. It is not Judson, spoiler alert. He's sleep deprived and scared. He has no idea he's going to reconcile anything. He has no idea how he's even going to approach potentially reconciling this budding gayness and the faith that he was raised in. The pressure is too much. and it's suffocating. But he arrives at this church, at this place he's never been, and he looks around at faces he's never seen before, and he sits in the back pew. Shout out, hey folks. And the service starts, and the first notes of a familiar song start to play. And no, it's not Under Pressure. It's not that kind of church. But it is a beautifully simple song. A beautifully, somewhat saccharine song that he knows from childhood. It's his favorite hymn. It's a little modern marvel called The Hymn of Promise by Natalie Sleeth. And he hears voices that he has never heard before singing words that take him back to his roots. And when the second verse comes, it is like a dam bursts and liquid fills his entire body, wave after wave of relief coursing through him like holy water he didn't even know that he needed. And the second verse, that verse that all of you sang just a few minutes ago, feels especially oceanic. And hear it again. There's a song in every silence, seeking word and melody. There's a dawn in every darkness, bringing hope to you and me. From the past will come the future. What it holds, a mystery, unrevealed until its season, something God alone can see. Natalie Sleeth, how dare you! The song is a tidal wave that is simultaneously coming from the past and the future. It is pointing back toward tried and true traditional truths and radical roots of his childhood faith, and it is pointing toward his future as a faithful fairy. New truths beginning to seed and grow and expand and become, planted by the past, watered by the present, reaching toward the future. And Micah can't see what's coming next, but he knows that he just got a fresh drink of what feels like life-giving water. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. Surprise, it's me. It literally felt like I was drinking that song. It felt like that song was the nourishment and invitation I'd been waiting for all my life. That song is and was like water to me. And whenever I think back to that day is forever branded on my heart. I realized that no one in church that day had any idea that that was happening inside my body. I don't know that I ever met any of the people who were in that space. Not one of the congregants knew that they were pouring water into my heart. So now travel back with me even further. New York City in the 1880s. A pastor named Edward Judson has had success preaching and teaching to a growing congregation at a church on Downing Street. He has radical roots tracing back to his famous father, Adoniram Judson, and he now wants to build a new kind of church, a new kind of radically faithful passion project that will serve as a new kind of sanctuary, a communal complex in the Christian tradition, but also a commons for community building, not only among its formal membership, but for an entire neighborhood, bringing together those who live in the brownstones above Washington Square, those with plentiful resources, and connecting them to those immigrants who live below the park, in ramshackle tenements, those who might not have financial resources, but who do have all kinds of other resources. Edward's plan is to bring all of these disparate folks into the same building, to mix and to mingle and to make something that simultaneously has ancient roots and feels like it's pushing all toward a new season, a new kind of future, a new kind of collaboration and co-creation. And in addition to all of the programmatic plans, Emily already referred to this, but we're going to underline it here. Judson's building will also boast a very practical feature. And if you've never noticed it before, be sure to find it as you leave the building today. According to Edward's plan, on the northeast corner of the building will be a fountain that will dispense fresh water, cooled through a system utilizing blocks of ice that are lovingly and regularly placed next to its pipes in order to keep the water flowing not only with life-giving refreshment, but with cool, life-giving refreshment. And in a time when clean water, that most basic human needs, and folks, we're kind of heading there. You know what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi, right? They might have water right now, but come on. I know we're in the 1880s now, but you know that we don't have clean water in a lot of places, right? So that most basic of human needs, it is nowhere to be found among the rest of the immigrant tenements. Placing that fountain in the corner of the building and inviting all to drink deeply from it and cooling it for them regularly is a radical act. One that not only pushes the church beyond the traditional confines of its walls, but also one that has deep, deep roots. And if you've ever wondered why Judson's weekly email newsletter is called The Digital Fountain, now you know! It's because that newsletter and our community has deep roots in trying to offer the cool refreshment that we hear the world is desperately seeking. We rarely know how the water we send out into the world is received and whose thirst it quenches, although I get the data and I see how many clicks and opens there are, but that's another sermon. We just send it out, trusting that the pressure of the water that we create might just counteract the pressures weighing down on all of us. Okay, story 3. We've been to 2000, we've been to 1880s, now we are going all the way back. We're taking a quantum leap, and we're going to steer this collective TARDIS all the way to the area surrounding ancient Mesopotamia. You heard Vashti so beautifully read the words from the book of Genesis that starts off with a familiar name in the Hebrew scriptures that form the foundational roots of the place's faith tradition. Abraham is all over the place. As Emily said, it's the story of Abraham. Even if you haven't cracked open your Bible in years, you probably have some of Abraham's stories, like baked into your psyche, baked into your body. Abraham is the old man who is called by God to leave his home and begin life as a nomad. He's the one who has so much faith that he's willing to sacrifice his own son for God. He's one of the OGs of the OT. But even though Abraham is the focus of much of the book of Genesis, Abraham is not the focus of the story that Vashti read. Our hero here is a woman named Hagar. Now, many scholars believe that the name Hagar is probably more of an epithet than a proper name. In Hebrew, Hagar's name is a composite of 2 words, ha, meaning the, and gar, meaning resident alien. So Hagar, whether that is her proper name or not, is a resident alien, an Egyptian woman forced into enslavement, forced into migration, abused, neglected, and in the story we've read today, eventually abandoned to fend for herself and her children in the wilderness. I'm getting real Baptisty up here, so I gotta. Now, if you know Hagar's story, you know that there are countless sermons that have been written and should be written about her powerful story. So, appreciating that, I want to hone in on just one aspect of the story right now, and it's an extremely simple detail. When Hagar and her son are abandoned by her enslavers and sent out into the wilderness, she eventually runs out of the small amount of water that's been provided for them. And she starts to feel enough pressure from her plight pressing down on her, and the sun beating down on their bodies, and her literal and figurative thirst, that she decides to essentially allow the end to come. She sets her child down, and then she sets herself down a ways away from him, and she awaits the inevitable. But amidst the pressure pushing down on her, a different kind of pressure bursts forth. Literal water in the wilderness. In the midst of the pressure of a world that says no to Hagar and everyone like her, the creative hands of the universe suddenly offer an entirely explosive burst of yes. And now that you've started to see the depths of my water metaphor, I'm literally showing you the depths of my water metaphor on my body right now. I want to do a little imaginative exercise with you. If you were in therapy, I know none of you are in therapy. If you were in therapy and we were approaching this story as an opportunity for dream interpretation, our therapist might ask us to imagine ourselves as each of the story's characters. There are times when we might act and feel more like Abraham, the complicated, myopic leader stuck between tradition and transformation. There are times when we might act and feel more like Ishmael, the child ripe with possibility who feels abandoned and unsupported. There are times when we might act and feel more like Hagar, the abused servant who is clinging to possibility even as the world piles pressure after pressure upon her. Of course, you could also imagine yourself as God in this story, but I don't recommend it, and I also don't think that your therapist would recommend it. But have you ever imagined yourself as the water? Like one of those folks that Emily photographed? Have you ever imagined that you could serve as that life-giving thing for yourself and for everyone? Have you ever imagined that you could be that refreshing burst between the very real pressure of everyday life and the very real pressure of potent possibility? We all know what it's like to be thirsty. And we all know what it's like to have that thirst quenched. But how often do you invite yourself and challenge yourself to be the water that you wish to see in the world? We all have wilderness stories. What's your wilderness story? We've all got them, right? Judson's in the wilderness right now. You're probably in the wilderness. I'll speak for myself. I'm in the wilderness. And who embodied the water that got you through that wilderness? Who's giving you the water that is actually quenching your thirst right now? And how can you join that wave? In this season of Radical Hope, as we continue to dive deep into our collective commitment to mutual aid, as we open up our space and ourselves to offer new spins on the very water that Edward Judson dreamt of conjuring way back in the 1880s, our worship team will be crafting these services that explore some of the ingredients that combine to create the cleansing water that this place and this people and this tradition tries to embody. And we've only chosen 9 ingredients. That is not an exhaustive list. So we need you to tell us what your ingredients of radical hope are. What calls you to embody the life-giving, deep-rooted hope that we know we can co-create? We'll be talking about radical imagination, radical play, radical repair, radical relationship, radical vulnerability, radical trust, radical freedom, radical honesty, and radical abundance. What would you add to the list? In the wilderness of continuing transition, when we are still becoming ourselves, when we look around and see the thirsty world, marginalized communities with no drinkable water, countless souls forced into migration and then used as political pawns, it can be easy to feel the pressure pushing down on us and down on us and down on us. But we have radical roots. Our own origin stories and Judson's origin story are stories of people not only wishing for water, but actively becoming the water that they wish to see in the world. And isn't it nice to know that we aren't reinventing the wheel here? We might not have a literal fountain of flowing water coming out of Judson's corner anymore, but we are the water, as long as we are using our pressure to push that water into the world. We're just joining a wave of pressure that's been churning for centuries. Despair is easy, but it is often a luxury. What if, when we hear those ominous bass notes of despair, that ding, 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 ding. What if we didn't immediately conjure up the worst of the lyrics? The pressure pressing down on me, pushing down on you. What if we didn't focus on those lyrics and instead reached for the lyrics that come later in the song? Love is such an old-fashioned word. And love dares you to care for the people on the edge of the night. And love dares you to change our way of caring about ourselves. Love is an old-fashioned word. Hope is an old-fashioned word. All of the words of our Radical Hope series are old-fashioned words, but they are words with deep, deep roots. Old isn't bad. It just needs the pressure. Old isn't bad, it just needs the pressure to become what it needs to be next. Where do you fit into that wave? Let's find it together. You don't have to be able to see the end of the wilderness in order to dig deep and become the water that will get you and all of us to the other side. So to welcome us even more deeply into that continuing work, and to allow me to get rid of the water that I have become in the world, I want to welcome up our final community minister, Jillian Walsh, who's going to offer an imaginative contemplation. Jillian.
Wow, okay. Wow, I'm feeling a lot. Excuse me. Something that Micah just said that really stuck with me was that while he was having this big transformative experience in church, that no one in church knew what was going on inside his body. And I wanted to take some time for us to kind of sit with our embodied experiences in this moment after being washed with all of this beautiful art, poetry, song, all of these concepts that are floating around within us. I wanted to bring us into our own interior fountains of life and really ask the water, ask the tides within what they're bringing us. So I would invite you, if it feels comfortable, to close your eyes for a moment. And as Micah also said, there's a song in every silence. So I would just love for us to embrace the song in this silence and the listening in this silence. So let's just take some time to acknowledge that we're made of water. Taking some time to sit with all of these beautiful stories of water and the life it gives us. And just seeing what that brings up in your sensations, your feelings. to just remind you of a sense of interior fluidity. And maybe you're experiencing more resonance of pressure, of being under pressure. And just allowing that to be so. Where do you feel that pressure? Starting to feel the shape of your thoughts, the shape of the pressure, and just allowing it to be. And maybe it feels comfortable to bring a hand onto your belly or onto your heart or both. Let's just take some time to feel the movement of breath. That even in stillness, we can feel the movement of the breath through our bellies, maybe even through the soft lower back, through your rib cage, through the shoulder girdle, just resting on top of the rib cage. And maybe even rocking all the way up to the top of the spine, and maybe the head just rocks slightly backward with the in-breath and slightly forward with the out-breath. And maybe that's mirrored all the way down at the tail. But even in stillness, there's all this movement through your entire body, just from the breath. And as you tune into the movement of your lungs with these deep breaths, you might start to become aware of your kidneys, kind of just in the back at the bottoms of your rib cage. These organs of filtration. And that might start to bring us in touch with the water element. The fluidity of our systems. You might just start to imagine that there's a fountain from each kidney attached to the bottom of each foot. Right kidney, right foot. Left kidney, left foot. Maybe this is impossible to access. Just allow it to be so and be gentle around it. Maybe it's just an image in your imagination. And just start to feel the way that tides move in your system. And just ask yourself what the tides bring, following the waves, and feel what they might be delivering to you. I like to feel a tide up the center of my spine, down all the way to the base of the pelvis, and then washing up through the center of my spine, up through my head and out around me. And then again back down, through the head, through the throat, through the heart, through the stomach, through the sacrum, and down into your roots. And just taking a moment to think about radical roots and what that feels like physically, what starts to move in your body when you just have this thought, radical roots. Maybe it's feelings, maybe it's sensations in particular locations. You don't have to do anything with that information, just noticing and listening. And allowing this tide to move back up from the radical roots, up through the base of your spine, through the whole body, washing upward and around you. And even in stillness, knowing that this tide is always there, the movement of the water is always there, the movement of the breath is always there. And I would just ask you to think of something that gives you a sense of okayness. Maybe even something that brings a sense of joy. And just hold that in your mind's eye for a moment, noticing what that does to your system, what that does to these tides, what that does to the water within and the movement. And from there, radical hope. What does that feel like? What kind of movements does that bring up? Where do you feel it? Where is it initiated from? Allow it to not just be an idea or a concept, but something that is felt, that is embodied. And allow the tides just to wash it wherever it needs to go, wherever it needs to move. If it feels comfortable to move around a little bit or make some gestures, feel free. And I hope that you can carry that with you as you go through the rest of your day. And as you open your eyes, just being gentle in this moment of transition. And thank you all for going on that journey with me.
Wow. I know I'm supposed to do offering, but I'm sorry. Can we give our CMs a hand, please? All of them. All of them. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. And I know I have some past CMs. We have some past CMs in the room on Zoom. We love y'all too. Yes, we got a new group here today, and we love y'all too. Okay. Radical hope under pressure. Reverend Micah Busey. What a talented minister is this one here. What a talented minister. And at this time, is for us to radically hope into our offerings, you know, and bring that into the offering. I know that Reverend Atwood is putting it up in the chat, the various ways that you can give us your welcome, your offering. Sorry, I'm still following Jillian here. So there are ways you can do it. One through Venmo at Judson-Memorial Church. Another, you can text Judson to 44321 or visit judson.org/give. And then we have our folks in the audience that will take your offering from you if you'd like to do that. And to help us, we have a song called Hope by Jason Robert Brown, soloist, our own Nick Gottlieb, along with, I believe Hinko is on there, pianist. Yes, Nick. Y'all.
Thank you, Reverend Holly. I want to say that I relate to Micah's dark night of the soul, that crashing realization that I had as well one night that I am gay. But instead of going to church the next day, I went to work as a singing waiter. And I was introduced to this composer actually by my younger daughter, Penelope, who's here today, because we drive her to soccer practice 4 nights a week, and we listen exclusively to musical theater playlists. So thank you, Penelope, but I didn't know this song. Thank you, Micah, for the introduction. I come to sing a song about hope. I'm not inspired much right now, but even so, I came out here to sing a song, so here I go. I guess I think that if I tinker long enough, one might appear. And look, it's here. One verse is done. The work's begun. I come to sing a song about hope. In spite of everything ridiculous and sad, though I'm beyond belief depressed, confused, and mad, well, I got dressed. I underestimated how much that would take. I didn't break until right now. I sing of hope and don't know how. So maybe I can substitute strength because I'm strong. I'm strong enough. I got through lots of things I didn't know I could. And so did you. I know that's true. And so we sing a song about hope. Though I can't guarantee there's something real behind it, I have to try to show my daughters I can find it. And so today, when life is crazy and impossible to bear, it must be there. Fear never wins. That's what I hope. See, I said hope. The work begins.
My goodness, thank you so much, Nick. It is so wonderful to have your voice solo back in this space. It's been too long. Thank you so much, so much. Would you all please rise in body and or spirit? Nick just said hope, the work begins. We all continue to say hope, and the work begins. This service might be ending, but our service in the world continues. Remember your roots. Be the water you wish to see in the world. And always, always, always pressure yourself into believing in hope. Can you see clearly now, Eric? Okay, lead us in some singing.
Credit points for the second part of Bright when you get through there, so I'll be listening.
Oh,
Nothing but blue sky ahead, people. Isn't that beautiful? Don't we just love this season of Rosh Hashanah, this season of homecoming, this season of back to school? We get new students, we get new energy, we get new hope. Now it is time to say farewell and send blessings to our church family online and to all of those who join us via YouTube live streaming and the ones who are faithful members of our Zoom community. Thank you for being in worship with us today. At this time in our service, Reverend Atwood will lead a time of celebration and prayerful sharing on Zoom. And I do hope that the 24 folks who were able to be with us yesterday in the weekend diaspora Zoom that I and Jack and some others who are here joined, that was so beautifully led by Reverend Holly Bean, will be able to go with Reverend Atwood now